Parshas Pinchas, it's the second longest parsha in the entire Torah. It's got 168 psukim. 168 is also known as Chesed. Ches, Samach, and Dalet. Ches is 8, Samach is 60, so that's 68. And the Dalet, there's an aleph bet that's called At, Bash, Gar, Dak, and so on. It means you take the aleph and the tov and you switch them. You take the beis and the shin, you switch them. You take the gimel and the reish, you switch them. And then you have the dalet and the kuf. So instead of the dalet of chesed, you switch it to a kuf, which is 100. And 168 is 168. That's the amount of psukim that we have in Parshas Pinchas. It's called Chesed, Chesed of Hashem. Pinchas is a very, very important and interesting parsha to us. It has a lot of implications for our life. Pinchas starts off, he was rewarded for his zealousness in killing the president of a tribe of Israel, the Zimri, who was the president of the tribe of Shimon, who committed a very gross immoral act, taking a Midianite woman and staying with her in front of everybody. He just wanted to show he is as could decide Torah like Moshe Rabbeinu and so on. That was the end of last week's Parsha Balak, and that was the point where Pinchas now became so recognized and so respected by everybody, because he didn't sit around, oh, what should we do with such a person? I mean, it's like Bill Clinton. The man was all over the whatever was going on in the White House, couldn't keep his zipper up, right? And he stayed with everybody, whoever he could stay with, he stayed with. That's the president? That's the person who's leading the country? That's the person who's telling us what we should do? No. The man was totally immoral. The man had no business being president. And thank God his wife is not. And this is just absolute immorality, which is unacceptable. You hear? It's unacceptable. And the person should be removed because he's setting an example for everybody else. Pinchas was able to get rid of that terrible example, and therefore he saved the Jews from a plague. The plague, okay, in that time it was people suffering from a plague. Today, our plague itself is immorality, that everybody does whatever they want and nothing matters to them. That's a terrible thing. There are bills to pay, right? We get electric bills, we get gas bills, telephone bills, right? We have auto repair. There's a lot of bills that pay. Worse than having to pay a financial bill is a bill of immorality and what it does to ourselves, what it does to our families, what it does to our children. Just take a look at the condition of every country today, where immorality is spread so far all over the globe, and nobody even really pays attention to it anymore. So that's the way the Parsha opens up. Understand that there are times you have to take extreme measures. Not often. We also have to be very careful not to let ourselves loose in the streets, right? Because a guy could be a zealot and destroy somebody else's life too. No good. You have to be very, very careful if you want to stick up for morality. You want to stick up for it, it's fine. You have a message to give. That's the way it should be, but you have to be careful not to harm or damage anybody, any innocent bystander on the site. So be very careful how we do things, and that's Pinchas. Pinchas went after the guy who was doing the job wrong, and he took care of him. Everybody else came out afterwards alive. That's what Pinchas's mission was. The Parsha then goes on to count the Jewish nation, right? There were several plagues. There was a plague in the time as last week with 24,000. There were some 14,000 died when the people rebelled against Moshe Rabbeinu. There were the people who died in the desert. And so Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, count all the people. These people who are standing now before you are after the 40 years that they were relegated to walk around the desert, to stay in the desert, and these are the people that will enter the land of Israel. Okay? Next part of the Parsha, and Reb Nosson points this out with such clarity, it's so beautiful. So the next part of the Parsha is Moshe being told that he's going to die, and he's going to die in the desert, and he's not going to bring these Jews into the land of Israel. And we find Moshe Rabbeinu pleading with Hashem, please give me a person who is a worthy person so he could be the leader of the Jewish nation after I go. In other words, he set aside his own affairs and he's in charge of the nation. You have to see what's good for them. I need a good person, he says. Hashem tells him, go take Joshua. Take Joshua, take Yehoshua, and make him the leader of the Jews. Okay? Then there's a story of the, little before that actually, that the daughters of Tzelafchad was, according to the Gemara, he was the one who gathered the wood on Shabbos. He desecrated Shabbos publicly, which the Gemara says he did it to teach the Jews a lesson what it means to desecrate Shabbos. Anyway, he died in the desert. He left only daughters. What happens? Then God told him, this is the laws of inheritance. What the daughters, do they inherit or not? Here the Torah says clearly, the laws of inheritance, the sons are supposed to inherit. They're supposed to keep their father's legacy alive. A daughter is married to someone who could even be from a different tribe, so she has to go with her husband to keep that legacy alive. But what happens if the father doesn't have sons? Clearly the daughters inherit. This is what the Torah tells us, the laws of inheritance. And then the Torah tells us the laws of the sacrifices. Okay? On Shabbos, daily you bring this sacrifice, Shabbos this sacrifice, Rosh Chodesh this, on Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. These are the sacrifices that you bring. Reb Nosson points out there's a tremendous amount of detail that goes into this laws of inheritance. There's a tremendous amount of detail that goes into the sacrifices. There's a tremendous amount of detail who goes into the leadership of who's going to lead the Jewish nation into the land of Israel, and it comes out in Parshas Pinchas. Why? Pinchas, Parshas Pinchas, always comes out, either during the 3 weeks between Shavuos B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av, or it comes out the day before Shavuos B'Tammuz. What you have, says Reb Nosson, is we're in the middle of 3 weeks of mourning. We're in the middle of 3 weeks of destruction. On the 17th of Tammuz, the wall of Yerushalayim was breached by the Babylonian and by the Roman soldiers. Some say it was like that in the first temple, others say it was a different date. The point is, this period from 17 of Tammuz, which was when Moshe Rabbeinu descended from the Mount Sinai, and he brought with him the tablets of stone, and he saw that the Jews committed idolatry, he broke the tablets, he broke the Torah, he did not give it to the Jews. Started a period of 80 days, because 40 days had passed already. 40 days Moshe Rabbeinu was in heaven praying for the Jewish nation. 40 days. He came down on the 17th of Tammuz, and he went up on the 18th, and he stayed there till Erev Rosh Chodesh Elul. He was there in order to plead on behalf of the Jews. They should be forgiven for the sin of the golden calf. And pray he did. And then he was given another 40-day period from Rosh Chodesh Elul until Yom Kippur, which were days of grace and favor in the eyes of Hashem, and the Torah was given again from new. But right now, 17 of Tammuz till Tisha B'Av, those are weeks, 3 weeks of mourning. And the temple is destroyed, the Torah was broken, the tablets were broken, the Roman legions broke into the city of Yerushalayim. They began sowing the fields with nothing, just to destroy Yerushalayim. And they brought an impure sacrifice to the temple. And yet, despite all the death and destruction that's taking place, Parshat Pinchas, the first of the 3-week Parshas, says that there's going to be inheritance. The Jews are going to enter the land, whoever they are, left after the death, after the sin of the spies and so on. They're going to be left alive. And they're going, like the Holocaust, they're going to be left alive. And they're going to enter the land. And they're going to inherit the land. And the land will be theirs. And the temple will be rebuilt. And all the sacrifices will be brought. This is what Reb Nosson writes about the week of Pinchas. Apparently it should be a week of destruction and death, mourning, sorrow, and yet it turns out that Pinchas is coming to teach us there is always hope, and Hashem is helping us, and if we look about ourselves today in the situation that we are, the land is being built. People are coming back, and Hashem is helping us despite everything that the Arabs and other nations are trying to do to us. Baruch Hashem, we're here, we're still here, and in Yetz Hashem we will always be here. Have a great Shabbos and all the best.